Welcome, everyone, to the Kenya Wanamnotam movement, the KWM podcast. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really vital. We're looking at the future of presidential leadership in Kenya, and specifically a pretty compelling proposal for how it might be reimagined.
hmm
Now, our main source for this, our core insights, they come directly from the Kenya Wantamnotam movement itself, specifically from their writings titled, Why the Presidency in Kenya is a Matter of Life and Death. Rethinking Leadership for a Peaceful Future.
It's a powerful title.
It really is. And our mission today really is to unpack why the presidency in Kenya carries such immense weight. We want to explore the challenges it historically presents and then really get into how the KWM envisions a different path, a more stable, more unified future.
Mm.
And they draw some really fascinating parallels with the Swiss political system, which we'll definitely get into. Even the name Wantam Notum, it sort of speaks volumes, doesn't it? Suggests a real desire for change, a clear idea of what's needed.
It does. And what's fascinating here, I think, is how digging into these specific Kenyan dynamics, it actually gives us incredibly fresh perspectives. Perspectives on governance, on societal well-being more broadly. It's not just about Kenya, you know. It kind of encourages all of us, really, to critically look at how power is structured everywhere and how different models, maybe unexpected ones, might foster peace and stability, especially in places facing similar kinds of challenges.
That's a really important point because when you dive into the KWM's perspective, it becomes, strikingly clear. For Kenya, the presidency isn't just about political power in some abstract sense. They argue quite strongly that this position holds more than just administrative significance. It's become, quite literally, they say, a matter of survival for many people.
Survival.
Yeah, the KWM points out how things like access to basic services, healthcare, education, or where vital national resources get allocated, even fundamental security. These can all hinge entirely on who holds that presidential office.
Right. It personalizes it intensely.
Exactly. And that makes every single election this incredibly high-stakes gamble, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. It stops being just a political battle and becomes this contest deeply tangled up in Kenya's complex tribal and cultural fabric. It often ends up determining the very direction of people's lives.
Indeed. And the KWM's analysis, it really zeroes in on this, how Kenya's entire political system seems to have sort of coalesced around this one single, incredibly powerful position. They describe this relentless chase where, state machinery, huge national resources, immense political influence. It's all directed towards capturing this single prize, the presidency.
A winner-takes-all scenario, essentially.
They call it a cutthroat game for power.
Yeah.
And the really unfortunate consequence of this winner-takes-all approach, as the KWM highlights, is a nation that's deeply divided. You see recurring tribal tensions, these awful episodes of electoral violence, and just this persistent instability. It's become a sad, almost predictable cycle. And this brings up a critical question, one that KWM puts right out there. Why? Why is Kenya seemingly stuck in this damaging loop? They challenge everyone to think. Is it actually possible to reimagine a leadership system, one that genuinely fits Kenya's unique dynamics, rather than just sticking to, borrowed Western models that might not be the right fit?
Right. A bespoke solution, perhaps.
Exactly. And crucially, can you design such a system to actively avoid the deep-seated problems of corruption and tribalism that have historically really plagued the nation? It's a call for some profound self-reflection and, frankly, systemic innovation.
And that reflection, that search for innovation, it leads them to propose a pretty groundbreaking alternative. Instead of just, highlighting the problems, the KWM actually looks outward. They present the Swiss political system as a potential model, a source of inspiration for Kenya's future. Now, they're wise about it. They acknowledge up front, no system is a perfect off-the-shelf fit. You can't just copy and paste. But they argue Switzerland offers some incredibly valuable lessons. Lessons Kenya could potentially adapt to build a more inclusive and, critically, a more peaceful democracy.
It's a really intriguing idea because the Swiss system operates on such fundamentally different principles compared to many centralized presidential setups we see elsewhere.
How so? What are the key differences?
Well, its foundation is really built on two pillars: direct democracy and federalism. So direct democracy means citizens get to vote directly on specific laws and policies, not just for representatives every few years.
Okay, so more direct citizen power.
Exactly. And federalism means power is significantly decentralized. It's shared across different levels of government, national, regional, local, rather than being hoarded at the top.
Yeah.
And this is the executive itself. Unlike Kenya, where power rests with one president, Switzerland has what's called the Federal Council.
The Federal Council.
Yes. It's made up of 7 members, and crucially, they share executive responsibilities. It's a collective leadership. This structure actively prevents too much power ending up in the hands of one single person or, one particular group. It stops anyone dominating the whole political scene.
7 people sharing the top job. That's
Wow.
quite different.
It is, and another key aspect is their multi-party approach. No single party holds overwhelming control, which naturally forces them to build coalitions, to work together. And maybe the most striking feature is the presidency itself. It rotates annually among those 7 council members.
Every year, a different person is president.
Every single year. And it's not just symbolic. It's a powerful mechanism designed to ensure equality, to ensure broad power distribution right at the very top. It inherently forces collaboration and negotiation. You can't just dictate.
Wow. Okay. When you lay it out like that, you can really see why the KWM finds it so compelling, especially for a country like Kenya that's wrestled with such deep divisions. But let's really underscore the why. Why might these specific features, the power sharing, the rotating presidency, be so beneficial for Kenya's specific situation?
Yeah, the KWM draws very direct lines here. They connect the Swiss model's features straight to Kenya's most urgent needs. First off, that power-sharing aspect, that's absolutely paramount. By spreading political power across multiple groups, multiple regions, it inherently promotes inclusivity. It actively helps, they argue, to reduce those dangerous ethnic tensions, something Kenya desperately needs to move past.
Okay. Reducing tensions through sharing power makes sense.
Secondly, there's a really strong emphasis in the Swiss system on consensus building. Because you have coalition governments, because there's this culture of wide consultation, it fosters a way of making decisions that genuinely tries to consider diverse viewpoints. It's so different from a top-down, my way or the highway approach. And that's vital, absolutely vital, in a society as diverse as Kenya's, where, ethnic differences have historically been exploited and led to conflict, even violence. Decisions come through negotiation, not just being imposed from above.
So more collaboration, less confrontation in decision-making.
Exactly. And the third big piece is citizen empowerment. The Swiss system gives citizens real teeth through things like referendums. They can petition to challenge decisions they don't like or even propose new laws themselves.
So direct democracy in action.
Precisely. This level of direct citizen power, it holds leaders accountable in a really profound way. You can't just ignore the public will easily. And in Kenya, where, let's be honest, corruption has been a major issue and trust in institutions can be quite low, the KWM suggests that this kind of system could fundamentally shift the political dynamics. It could tip the balance of power back towards the people, making leaders genuinely answerable.
That paints a very compelling picture. A lot of potential benefits there. But okay, let's be realistic. A change this massive, it surely can't be easy. It's not just a matter of flipping a switch, right? There must be hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. And the KWM is very clear-eyed about this. They don't present it as some magic bullet. They identify some really significant challenges in trying to adapt the Swiss system or elements of it to the Kenyan reality.
Like what are the main roadblocks they see?
Well, one major point they raise is something they call political maturity. The Swiss system, it kind of relies on a political culture that's built over time. It values long-term planning, compromise, a genuine willingness to collaborate even with your political opponents.
Which might be lacking sometimes.
Well, it's a stark contrast, they argue, to Kenya's often more transactional, sometimes quite confrontational, winner-takes-all political environment. Moving from that kind of mindset to one based on negotiation and collective governance, that would take considerable time, considerable effort, especially given Kenya's history where, political strongmen have often been rewarded more than consensus builders.
Okay, so the political culture needs to evolve. What else?
Another potential challenge is gridlock. It's the flip side of consensus sometimes. While coalition governments are great for getting diverse views heard, they can occasionally lead to political deadlock. You have many voices, many parties at the table, each with their own priorities.
Making decisions can take longer.
It can.
Yeah.
Achieving that broad consensus across a diverse range of players can be time-consuming. And for a nation like Kenya, where sometimes you need really decisive action on urgent issues, that potential slowness could be a problem. It might slow down needed progress.
Right, that's a valid concern.
And lastly, and this is maybe the biggest one, there's the huge shift in mindset required. And not just among the politicians. This needs to happen across the whole population. Both Kenyan citizens and their leaders would need to embrace a fundamentally new way of thinking about leadership, one that genuinely values collaboration over just competition, one that values power sharing over dominance. That's a massive cultural shift.
Yeah, changing how people think about power itself.
It's profound. It requires leaders and the public alike to truly understand and buy into the idea that sharing power is actually better for everyone in the long run, for the stability and well-being of the whole nation.
Okay, so those are some pretty significant challenges. Political culture, potential gridlock, this big mindset shift. So, given all that, what does this actually mean for Kenya? How does the KWM suggest navigating these hurdles? How can Kenya adapt such a system effectively and actually move towards this vision of shared power and greater stability?
Well, the KWM doesn't just point out the problems. They also put forward some very clear, quite actionable strategies for how this adaptation could happen. They stress, first of all, that it would require extensive long-term education and public awareness campaigns, really demonstrating the tangible benefits of power sharing and collaboration to all Kenyans, not just the political class in Nairobi, making it clear why this matters to everyone.
So education is key.
Absolutely. And for this new system to truly take root, they argue, politicians themselves would need a fundamental reorientation. They'd need to genuinely focus on the common good, on what's best for the whole country, and consciously leave behind the temptation of, short-term tribal gains or personal enrichment. That's a big ask, but essential.
A focus on national interest over sectional interest.
Precisely. And civil society, NGOs, community groups, the media they'd have to step up to, become far more active, more vigilant, not just showing up during election time, but being engaged throughout the entire political process, consistently holding leaders accountable to these new principles.
Keeping the pressure on.
Yes. And crucially, the education system itself, right from primary school upwards, would play a pivotal role, fostering this new understanding from a young age. Teaching kids that power sharing isn't a sign of weakness, but actually the opposite. It's a source of collective strength. This idea that leadership isn't a zero-sum game, where one person wins and everyone else loses.
But a collective effort.
Exactly. A collective endeavor for the nation's benefit. That mindset, if it could become the cornerstone of Kenya's political future, could fundamentally transform how people think about governance and their own role within it.
That's really hopeful. And look, if these ideas we're discussing, these insights from the Kenya Wanam Nortem movement, if they're sparking your curiosity, if you're sitting there thinking about how you could be part of this conversation, a conversation aiming to change your village, your city, your nation, then we really want to encourage you to visit their platform.
That's right. The place to go is www.wantamnotem.com.
Yeah, head over to www.wantamnotem.com. You can create an account there. You can explore more of their thinking, get deeper into these insights, and importantly, start sharing your own ideas, your perspectives on how to make a real difference. It's designed as a space for that collective action, for that vital discussion.
It really is. It's a unique opportunity, I think, to contribute to this ongoing dialogue and actually be part of building that better future they envision.
So let's bring this discussion kind of full circle. The KWM's core belief, when you strip it all down, it's powerfully simple, isn't it? The presidency in Kenya just shouldn't be a matter of life and death. That statement, it just resonates through everything they propose. It articulates this almost desperate need for fundamental change.
It really does. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, what the KWM is arguing is that adapting elements of the Swiss model, even if it's not a perfect wholesale replication, it presents a genuine, hopeful chance for Kenya. A chance to finally break free from that devastating cycle of tribal violence, of political chaos that has sadly plagued the country for far too long.
A path away from the past.
Yes. It holds the potential, they believe, for building a system that's truly more inclusive, more peaceful, genuinely democratic, one that actually benefits all Kenyans, not just, the select few who manage to grab power over their favorite communities. And while they're realistic, the Swiss system isn't presented as some simple fix. You just import it and problems vanish.
Right. They acknowledge the challenges.
They do. But they frame it as a really promising start, a kind of blueprint, maybe, for significantly reducing those tribal tensions that have been so destructive, for eliminating the electoral violence that has marred past elections, and for building a leadership structure that actively prioritizes unity, collaboration, shared responsibility. Ultimately, the KWM concludes, making this vision real. It requires Kenya to forge a courageous new path forward, a path designed by Kenyans, for Kenyans, one that truly works for all its people and prioritizes that long-term stability over any short-term political gain.
That is a truly powerful and, yes, hopeful message to end on, or nearly end on. We've taken quite a deep dive today, haven't we, into why the Kenyan presidency carries such weight, the deep challenges it creates, and this really compelling proposal from the Kenya Wantam Nutum movement for systemic change, drawing those valuable lessons from Switzerland.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? Perhaps a final thought for everyone listening. What fundamental assumptions do we all hold about leadership, about power, in our own countries, our own contexts, and how might exploring alternative models, like the one KWM proposes for Kenya, how might that challenge those assumptions we often take for granted? It's definitely something worth mulling over.
A great question to leave us with. And if this exploration, this deep dive, has really sparked your curiosity, if you want to engage more with the Kenyawananotum movement's vision for change, remember the website, www.wananotum.com. Go there, create an account, join the discussion, and please contribute your ideas. Your voice matters in making a real impact in your village, your city, your nation. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today into the insights from the Kenya Wantam movement. We really hope you'll join us for another depth dive very soon. And thank you for listening to the Kenya Wantam movement, the KWM podcast.